Good morning. So I wanted to do a quick follow-up on the playthrough that I did. There were a couple of good call-outs. Let me read the first one. This was by Aviation Burr 8039. He called out, rightly so, that the FedEx didn't work because for certain aircraft you have to call the heavy call-out. Now, he also mentioned that you have to see this after the call sign for them to actually listen. This is 100% correct. This was a heavy aircraft due to the airplane type. There's a couple of interesting things in here. One, I didn't know, but two was me making an assumption from the prior game and from seeing other videos of tower controllers in their jobs. There were a couple, I think, from Dubai and ATL, and I think there was another airport that highlighted visually beyond just the strips that you're dealing with a heavy. Now you can see I did get the FedEx plane on the ground. This means that I did originally identify them as a heavy, hearing the call sign, and gave that back to them in order for them to get landing clearance. I believe I also had to transfer them from 25 right to 25 left. I can't remember exactly which aircraft I did that for, but it might have been them. Anyway, point is, I got them on the ground, which means that I did correctly use the heavy call sign. But once on the ground, I couldn't get them to taxi because I wasn't calling them a heavy. And if you look here in the tag, which is what I was primarily reading, there is zero identifier that they are a heavy aircraft. But the call out that was made in the comment, if I zoom the image in quite a bit here, and we come down to the airplane itself, you can see that the airplane, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see there are two sets of engines on either side of the plane. This one doesn't have any engines. This one has one engine. So it's kind of a visual reference calling out the size of the aircraft, which is kind of cool. SkyWest, this would be a smaller commuter plane, like a mini MD-80, I believe. This would be like an Airbus A320, 737, smaller aircraft like that. And the FedEx could be a 747, a DC-9, DC-10, something bigger that's hauling a lot more cargo. So interesting way to see it. And honestly, I hadn't really caught on to the difference beyond, I think, GA and the jets. So good call out on that. It's a very interesting thing to see. And, well, now I know. That will certainly help. But if you see, this is the view that I was typically playing with in the game. Zoomed out so that I can see all my runways, all my planes, and get everybody moving while reading the call signs. In this, I can barely make it out that this is a dual-engined aircraft, so I might not have caught on to that. Moving over to the deep right image, you don't have the airplane. There is no indication on this of what the airplane is, so I'm not going to see that visual reference like I did on the ground. And second, there's no call out on the tag that they're a heavy. And that is what I was expecting to see, similar to those other videos of real-world ATC towers, as well as seeing something on the ground. Now let me jump back into Tower 3D Pro from a prior video that I did at Philadelphia, one of the last videos I did. If I look at the strips, you can see American H. That's the call out that it's heavy, everything else medium and all that stuff. But there's the H calling out heavy. Now if you look at the highlighted tag, you can see /H telling me that this is a heavy aircraft. This way I can easily, looking at the call sign, immediately identify them as a heavy. Now this may be something that the pilot can input into the transponder that comes out to me. I don't know honestly on that front, but I have seen ground radars and air regular ATC 4 centers displaying this information on their screen. So I believe it's something that can be done. Maybe I'm wrong in that. Maybe I was looking at something that had been edited or modified, but I'm pretty sure I saw it. 100% okay to accept that I was wrong, but when the game carried forward, I expected this type of a tag to show here. because I really don't see a lot of other information on this tag other than just the call sign. And granted, that's not entirely necessary, but for the same purpose of this game, I don't really do any controlling or maneuvering them, so it's a little difficult to gauge some of what's going on this screen, but interesting to understand nonetheless. So that was kind of the reasoning that I couldn't control the FedEx and why I did not catch on to the fact that they were a heavy. I did look at the screen that listed my prior commands, but I'd already moved past it and I didn't see anything in there because it didn't highlight that they were a heavy, and the pilot I don't think was calling it out when they kept saying, "Oh, sorry, we don't understand," or "can't do," or "negative," or whatever the case may have been. So good call out, thank you for that. And I will try to remember that moving forward. I did reach out on the Discord bug report for Feel there on the game and ask if the debriding ADIRS screens are supposed to show me if they're a heavy or not. I have not heard back, and it's been at this point probably 12 hours or so since I made the post, so we'll see if I hear back. If not, I may ask again. Now, the proper way to not have to deal with that again would be the one thing that I avoided, as I called out in the video, because I was really strictly trying to look at the screens in front of me, catch onto the commands, and work with it, and that would be the strips. The strips should have highlighted it, but I never bothered looking at them until after the fact because I was trying to stay focused on those two screens really to be able to identify what's happening and make sure the commands are going properly. I didn't want to flip through all those screens. So probably when I do another control, I will add the strips to another screen so that I have them visually and I can see them. But there are some current bugs with the strips from what I've seen on Discord. But either way, that likely would have fixed my problem. But I was trying something specific and didn't quite get there. There was another good comment that I wanted to call out from, let me see if I can find it. I believe it was Travis Trucker 8823, who in a prior life, as it were, did some traffic controlling for a career, which is awesome. Appreciate that type of viewer because it really calls out my deficiencies. What he called out is basically mind control, because you really do have to teach your lips how to say what you're thinking, and you have to say it quickly. And if you had seen any of my older Tower 3D videos, when I got into a good groove, I'm rested, and I've been doing the game regularly, I did pretty decently. I'm not going to say I was great by any means, but I did okay. In this one, very rusty, learning new commands and adjusted commands, and a new voice control system that really seemed to be picky in a different way. So some of my enunciations didn't capture, and some of the commands that I thought would work didn't seem to want to work because you had to say things a little bit differently. And that's really my negative for the voice system here, because while it does work well and it isn't a bad voice system, if you don't know the commands and you don't say them 100% correct and articulate very well, then they're not going to take. Whereas in the real world, most pilots are going to understand what you're saying when you say cross runway 25, pushback approved, or taxi to apron, cross runway 25. Instead, the game makes me split those into two separate commands, which wastes my time as a controller and the pilot's time, because then I have to wait for the initial response, then call them again, then wait for the secondary response. So things like that do kind of annoy me in the game, where you really can't string things together and let the system figure it out. But anyway, I just wanted to do a quick follow-up on that situation and both call myself out as well as share some of the information that the viewers had shared. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.